Welcome to Creature Creator, a show where I help you recreate your favorite stories and characters at your gaming tables. Today, I'm going after Michael Myers, the Boogeyman of Haddonfield, Illinois, just in time for us to start planning some awesome slasher one-shots for the Halloween season. It goes without saying that Michael is a legend amongst the titans of modern-day horror. For the last 40 years, he has terrorized the young and old across 12 films of various quality, set in over 4 different timelines. But what's really cool is that at the core of this choose-your-own-adventure franchise lies one of the simplest yet most effective slasher stories that you could ever want to run at your tables. So strap in, we got a homecoming to plan. Here on Creature Creator. Hey, hello there. I'm Flintworth, and I've been looking forward all year to this episode. While Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th will always be my favorite slasher, I'd be lying if I didn't say that Michael has always scared me more. When done right, Michael is just this, not like that, or that. Stop. I said stop. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! As I was saying, when done right, Michael just exudes this eerie aura about him. And it's not just because of his creepy mask. It's also a combination of his simple design, his foreboding reputation, and silent MO that just elevates Michael as a boogeyman you simply do not want to mess with. Which of course makes him the perfect adversary to base an entire Halloween game around. After spending a week researching and planning for this guide, I've come up with 3 possible plots for you. One for a party of unassuming teenagers, another for the cops hunting down your killer, and lastly, one for those looking to just run a classic third act finale. For all of these, I am mainly taking inspiration from the original timeline that takes place over the first 2 Halloween films. Partly so I can go and keep things simple today, but mostly so I have the chance to give the other timelines the proper justice in future videos. Yep, even one for the Season of the Witch, to which I have Darcy from The Last Drive-In on Shudder to thank for making me give this cult classic a fair second chance. Otherwise, I would have probably avoided it for the rest of my days. Like those god-awful Leprechaun films. I would rather watch Bread Mold than any of those despicable things again. Fortunately, when taking inspiration from Halloween, we are getting grade A horror material to work with here to reform and to recreate into our own games. But before I go and break down the very plot ideas I have in mind, we need to talk about the boogeyman stalking in the shadows. Whether you're planning to run Michael Myers himself, or a slasher of your own design, you're going to want to try implementing a few narrative choices that other filmmakers failed to employ in the many, many copycat movies that came out following the success of the original Halloween. You cannot treat an entity like Michael Myers like you would any other character, because he really isn't one. Sure, he may have a history and a physical presence in all the films, but Michael is always at his most effective when he's treated as a narrative device, a symbol. You can spend all the time in the world designing your killer to have the scariest of appearances and the most dark of motivations, but it'll all be for naught if you don't take the time to build up their place in your plot. This is done twofold in the original films. First, by Dr. Loomis's recollections of Michael's childhood, and later by the kids of Haddonfield as they gossip about the boogeyman coming to get them. Separately, they each strip away the humanity of Michael, but woven together, they build him up into the shape of evil that stalks them all in the night. Basically, while you run your game, you need to spend time building up what your killer represents in the terms of your story, whether that be a complex metaphor or a simple statement. Like how Dracula is meant to be a representation of humanity's fears of sexuality. In Michael's case, he is supposed to be this embodiment of pure evil, something that you can never hope to kill, only fend off or at best run away from. Which, if you're looking to go and recreate into a killer of your own design, isn't that hard to go and do. No matter whatever you do end up doing, make sure to keep things simple. These games should be an experience of controlled terror almost every step of the way. Certainly go ahead and have your jump scares and fake outs, but Halloween's all about that long buildup of tension as Michael stalks his victims in the background. Your players shouldn't be aware of the danger they are in until standing right behind them. Speaking of which, let's take a look at those scenarios I have in mind. The first one is I call the after party, where your players will be running a group of high schoolers attending a Halloween block party. You don't need to set up much, a simple street or two of homes will do. The important thing here is to give your players a lot of non-playable characters to play around with in a setting with a lot going on. This should give you ample opportunity to go and just role play with your players in the opening moments of your game, allowing them plenty of opportunities to explore and settle into your world, while also allowing you to go and slowly drip in moments of dread. Our aim here is to recreate the events of the first film from the perspectives of Laurie and her friends, where they spend most of Halloween just basically going about the holiday none the wiser. Talks about monsters? Oh, that is just kids teasing one another. You caught something creepy out of the corner of your eye? It's Halloween! There are spooky costumes and decorations everywhere. Naturally, players tend to be more suspicious and paranoid than your average horror survivor, which is why I'm recommending you do all this at a block party. That way you have better opportunities to camouflage your killer in the background. For a little extra flair of fun, try running a few mini games for your players, like holding an eating contest, a battle of the bands, or even jack-o'-lantern carving. What I like to do is actually pass out pictures of pumpkins to my players to draw on. It makes for a much more immersive experience than just having them describe what their characters do. As the scenario plays out, you're going to want to slowly have the party die down. Make sure to give your players a chance to say goodbye to any NPCs they may have had a connection with, because you're going to be using them as possible murder victims for your players to stumble across in the second act. Either by the end of the first half of your game or the start of your second, your players should get invited to an after party at an NPC's house nearby, where you will at long last allow your Boogeyman to come to the forefront by slaughtering the party's host. How things play out from here will be entirely up to you. Personally though, I recommend having your players witness their host getting slain in front of them, causing them to go into this wild panic that will then allow you to do this extended chasing across the various neighboring houses, where they'll have to go and try their best to evade your killer while stumbling across more and more and more of his victims. For a little extra flair, you can even make them roll to see if they fend off becoming hysterical at the sight of their slain neighbors, to really demonstrate how your Boogeyman has a power over people. Try if you can to hold off killing any of your players until the final moments of the game. At best, anyone who is slain should be waiting around 15 to 20 minutes, just long enough to go and watch how the rest of the plot plays out. And this goes with any of the plots I suggest here today. Ooh, quick note, I did make a 5e stat block for this guide that you can download below. But honestly, for this first scenario, it'd be much more thematic to treat your killer like a roving hazard, where your players will have to go and make various skill checks or saving throws to avoid taking any damage from them, which will really help highlight how the killer is more of a force of nature than a normal human being. A scenario like this is perfect for those running games using systems more suitable for horror, like Kids on Bikes or Call of Cthulhu. As for those hoping to run a game with something like the ever-popular D&D 5th edition though, would probably enjoy my second scenario idea more. I call it The Dark Hunt, and it's inspired by Dr. Loomis's and the Cops side of the films, where your party will be playing a group of level 5 characters trying to track down your slasher and put an end to their massacre. For this, you're going to want to set up another map where your killer has already slaughtered a good number of people, resulting in all sorts of panic and chaos. For those looking to run a 2-part campaign, this scenario actually would make a good follow-up to the previous one I brought up, where your players get to play the heroes out to either avenge or protect their characters from the original story. Regardless, this setup is intended to be an intense game of cat and mouse throughout the streets of your small town USA, where victory is not determined by whether they stop the killer, but by how many they manage to save. Yeah, we're going to want to strip a little bit of survivor's guilt in the events of this one, and maybe a little bit of anxiety for good measure if you let it slip that their characters' loved ones are also possible targets. The real gem of this plot, though, is that you will get to recreate your own Dr. Loomis, a single-minded foil to your killer that you can use to build up the legend of your Boogeyman. Remember, focus less on explaining backstory and more on informing your players to what they're actually dealing with. Kind of like
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
I foresee the biggest struggle you will have this time around will honestly be running the encounters between your party and your boogeyman. Because the last thing you wanted is for them to all gang up on him from the get-go and stopping him flat. My best advice would be to arrange the game so that it puts them into a catch-22 situation, where the party could stick together while they search the area, but at the cost they may not reach innocent civilians before the boogeyman does. By the time they do ultimately corner your killer in some decrepit dark building or what have you, they should be feeling the stress of the night, whether that be from the masked killer getting a few lucky hits in on them, or from them feeling the stress of watching so many of their loved ones getting hurt throughout the events of the game. Either way, the tension should be high by the point they defeat the killer. Take note, I said defeat, not kill. Dying would imply that your boogeyman was something natural to begin with, which only served to ruin all the hard work you put in to build up your killer as this avatar of evil. Nah. This kind of game should end with your party either getting wiped out or them discovering that despite their best efforts, their foe somehow managed to survive. The only ones dying should be your players as they try to fend off Michael during this climactic endgame showdown, which just so happens to be the final scenario I wanted to go over today. I call it Slaughter of the Fittest, and it's perfect for tables looking to cut right to the action. This final game idea will see you recreating the endgame of Halloween 2 for your players, where they, the last remaining survivors to a night of murder and mayhem, find themselves lost in a labyrinth of a building. Their goal? Get out or find the boogeyman before it finds them first. This kind of game is perfect for those looking to have something more action-packed that won't take up their entire evening, making it ideal for Halloween game night. To make this happen, you're going to want to build a map that looks like a mini maze with plenty of twists and turns. Don't think too hard about how you intend to scatter key items across it. In fact, you do better to figure out where you want all of your searchable spots to be over which one of them has the key to the front door in it. Most likely your players are going to change their plans anyway a few times as they gather supplies. Using a system like Don't Look Back would actually be worthwhile bringing out for a game like this. Thanks to its streamlined rules and ready-built maps, it should allow you to get a game going within 10 minutes and completed most likely upon the hour. Hopefully my suggestions today were enough to get the wheels turning inside all your heads. Because really, there are no doubt other ways you could go and recreate your favorite moments from Halloween. Hell, you could even take a cue from Hollywood and repurpose the film's straightforward plot into any number of unique takes on the horror genre. So, go out and let your imagination run wild. I will leave you with this one last piece of advice though. Whether you intend to go and run a Halloween boogeyman or a Christmas monster, don't skip out on the music. Half of the dread in the film comes from John Carpenter's score. Trust me, you have not lived as a game master until you've gone and dropped some dark techno track in your players in the middle of a chase scene. I personally recommend checking out the albums by Scandroid or March of the Dead. They both have produced a lot of great tracks that should truly bring your games to life. I could go on, but this video is already long enough as it is. Besides, I should save a few of my tricks for next year's video. Or better yet, give you all a chance to share a few of your suggestions or ideas in the comments below. That said, have a fantastic Halloween and let your games be delightfully spooky. Woo! Next time on Creature Creator. Michael Myers isn't the only thing stalking through the shadows on Halloween night. There are plenty of other monsters and ghouls looking to have a little fun. But one creature in particular is out to ensure everyone follows the rules of the holiday to the letter. Check back here on All Hallows Eve as we take a look at Trick or Treat Sam as I show you how recreating the little demon could boost the stakes of any holiday-themed game you intend to run. Hey there! Thank you so much for watching today. Please keep sending in your thoughts and ideas. It's kind of fun to hear you guys all have to say, and if you haven't yet, consider liking and subscribing, and if you don't, no worries. You're still beautiful, and I love you either way. Take care.